Good morning, my name is Lelliott. I'm the owner of a Kenpo school, which is Kenpo Karate, in Clovis, California, which is a city in the Central Valley, California. My school has been running since 2001, when I moved here from the island of Jersey in the English Channel. I was born and raised in Jersey. I've been doing karate there since 1973. I opened my own school over there as a brown belt in 1978, and I tested for a black belt under Mr. Ed Parker in 1980. It was just one of those arts that was fascinating to me. The more you did, the more you wanted to do. It was hard training, which I needed at that stage of my life. It was just something that I could see as a valuable thing to me as I grew up. I was interested in teaching adults and children. As life went on, children became a bigger factor because they're basically, especially in a karate school, they're the commercial hub of that school. But it's just great to be able to teach them and see them grow. And I could see that from an early stage when I was teaching in Jersey. Even though it wasn't teaching children at the beginning, I could see the adults growing and getting more comfortable with what they were doing. I could see them just becoming better people all the time instead of aggressive. They were happy with what they were doing, but they were confident in what they were doing. Yeah, there's not really any age to Kenpo. I have one student who's 75 and just got his yellow belt. We start them as young as 3 years old. What we normally do is we call them little dragons, so they're basically learning motor skills and listening skills. When they've done the techniques, especially children, they'll move to the back of the line and they'll start goofing off or playing. So we try to get them to the stage where they're listening, they have their attention skills, that'll take them forward into their schoolwork, and that idea of working with the school teachers and their parents, and it'll bounce one thing to the other. At 3 years old, they're not going to learn much of karate, but they can learn how to kick and punch and everything like that. But it's just really a springboard, kind of like we would be with a junior school, preparing a child for each level of their schooling. So we go from 3, and then from about 5 or 6 years old, they move into our junior program. They convert and move on again to the cadet program or something, and then before long they become adults with the school if they've lasted the journey, and then they can continue their journey through the black belt and beyond. Most people would get quite a buzz out of seeing a student of theirs come up from, especially if they're very hard to teach at the beginning, and they can see their motor skills and their listening skills and their techniques and everything coming together as they continue on their journey. I've had people that have come in can barely walk when they get on the floor, and their esteem is very, very low. They won't lift their heads. And as they've gone through their journey, 1 or 2 years in, you can see the total change in the body. Their head is up, they're smiling, the confidence is growing. So I think that's probably the biggest buzz. Not everybody can be the same as everybody else. We're all totally different, but everybody can give 100%. And if they're doing that, then their journey is going to be as good as the next person's. I think with the high tech of today, the biggest problem with the children is that they don't get the exercise that they used to get. The schools, I think, especially in America, are letting them down, that their PE classes are not hard enough. So their physical work in the classes is not, they seem to have that imbalance of, we have so much homework that they can never get to work on the physical side of their structure. Also at home, like the older generations, when the children, they were in a safer environment in them days. So they could get out and climb trees and run around the block. Typically in the older days, you were put out of the house morning and told to come back for your meal in the evening. That's obviously not going to happen in today's society because it's too dangerous with a lot of the dangerous people that are around. But in saying that, a lot of people or a lot of children are left to do too much time on computers and on the internet and things like that, where they should be out chasing another sport. I think the parents that bring their children into the karate realize that, and they see that their children, in most times, are out of shape when they come in. And they like it when we give them the hard workouts and also the structure of listening, because a lot of the children's now, they don't know how to listen because they're so focused on their TV sets or their computer games and everything like that, that one of the main things that we have to work on in the school is to get that child to focus. Typically when you're talking to somebody, their eyes are darting in other directions. And the ADD is quite a common thing in nowadays, where in the old days it wasn't really heard of very much, even though it was obviously around in some children. But I think the best thing for those is the structure that they have something that they actually can do without just using their thumbs all the time. So you use that muscles all the time, and the team leadership type things. Some will be leaders, some will be followers, but they have that respect and bring themselves together as a group. Even though you might have some children on the floor that are only 5 or 6 years old, they're working with children that are 9 or 10 years old or 11 years old, and they look after each other. They have each other's back, whereas typically they don't mix the same as on the outside. No, we don't really play the male-female card too often. Typically when they're young children, funny enough, the girls are tougher than the boys. It normally gets to the age of about 9 or 10 when it starts to change a little bit. But typically the boys are the biggest wimps and the girls are the strongest. It just seems to switch over at a certain age when they start to get their muscular thing going, and they just get more confidence. But most of the girls can hold their own with a guy, especially at a very young age. As they get a bit older, obviously the male muscle grouping is different to the female, but they both have different strengths and qualities. The girls you will typically find when they're doing the forms and katas, they like that better because it's more of a routine thing. They sit down and they just like to look good in everything that they're doing. So they're technically, in most cases, better, whereas the guys get into the techniques and they want the rough and tumble of it. But in saying that, it's a switch over. I mean, it's a give and take. Some of the girls like the rough and tumble, and some of the guys don't like the rough and tumble. So we try to get that comfortable place with somewhere in between of everything and take it on from there. I would say in the freestyling, most of the guys, not every guy would have to back off. Some girls can definitely hold their own, but there is that strength factor. So normally when they're fighting with a girl, especially a black belt test or black belt girl, even if they're not testing, we'll normally want that guy to back off to what he might do with somebody's own muscle structure. But in saying that, most of our girls, when they get to black belt level, they would hold their own with just about anybody. I chose the art of Kenpo because I like the structure of it. It's structured with a syllabus that you know exactly where you're going to be at whatever stage your belt is. So in other words, when you start as a white belt, you know that you're going to have a certain amount to do. That's your focus point that you can go towards your yellow belt, and so on all the way through onto black belt. The many aspects of it, the fighting when you're younger is more important to most people. As you get a little bit older, you understand the value of the forms, of the structure, of the body mechanics, and you work on the techniques, which is a big system in a Kenpo. Probably the biggest part of it is to learn technique, so you're not working with pure strength. It can be adapted to a small child or a woman or older person, whatever, just because it's a good technique rather than brute strength. In the beginning with the martial arts, there was no belt system. In the Kung Fu styles, there was a sash system, but there was no belts. You just continue on your journey. It became more of a commercial thing. It's helpful in the schools, in today's modern schools, because especially children, they need to see progressions. And if you have somebody too long on a journey now, it's a white belt, and then you have to do 3-4 years before you get a brown belt or even a black belt, then they won't last the course in general. They'll need to see each stage that they're working is going to be achieved either with a coloured stripe or a coloured belt and go to the next level and so on. Yeah, when we're testing people, we look for different qualities in each one. We'll normally know by the time they're testing, like when we do our junior program, it's a rotation of every 17 weeks, so within a 1-year cycle they should do 3 tests. We have pre-tests, and normally the children will qualify to test unless they're just too lazy at home and they're not practicing at all, then in some cases we'll hold them back and they have to retest on the next cycle. So teach them a good ethics in terms of, we're not going to give you anything, you have to earn something that you're going to get. As an adult goes on, it's basically the same thing. If you give me 100% of what you can do, I'm going to test you and I'm probably going to pass you. If you don't give me 100% and you kind up lazy or you're not trying in the class, you won't even get on the floor to test. So it's really, the ball is in the student's park and they take it from there. And the test normally goes over 3 or 4 different parts combined into the test. The first one we would do would be their basic classwork. That would mean that they're moving up and down the floor, doing foot maneuvers, punches, kicks, blocks, in a sequence that the instructor's calling out. It'll normally be done quite fast because we want the students to get their heart rate up and to know that they're actually working for something and earning something. The second stage, each school could be a little bit different the way they present it, but they will normally travel through all them stages. Our second stage would be that they would move into forms, or katas, whatever you want to call them. Katas is a Japanese word, forms is more of the Chinese word. And that's really just putting your basics into a progression that is already set out that you have to do. So it really teaches you good body mechanics. So when we're looking at a student doing a testing, we're looking that they've learned something, that they know what a neutral stance is, they know what a forward stance is, they have correct blocks, and their forms are done to at least a quality that's acceptable. If they're being lazy and the form doesn't look good, then they're probably going to be asked to come back or at least repeat the form and try a little harder. Third stage of that, we would move into the syllabus where we do the techniques. That's self-defense techniques. Normally, like if you're doing a black belt test, you would test from all the yellow belt all the way through all the colored belts and through all the blacks. They're done in a hard line sometimes one-on-one, sometimes in a progression line where there might be several students on the floor at the same time. But it is done not full contact, but there should be some contact, and it's done hard and fast. And you have to stay, we're looking for the student to stay focused throughout that line. The last stage of that will be the freestyle fighting, where we'll put them into headgear and gloves and foot protection, mouth shields. And basically, that's the hardest part to do. Although it's not something that you have to remember as such, it's something that builds that particular get up and go in that person where they say, well, I can do all this other stuff, but what am I like when something puts the pressure on me? So it's really a great way of testing when they're under pressure and to see how they respond to it. Most people are prepared enough that they will respond quick. The other thing that we find in the class, not so much in the testing, but in the classes, will eliminate the bullying, because some people, especially children, will like to beat up on a kid that they find smaller. So normally we'll just put a bigger kid in and have them just teach them a little lesson along the way, not to hurt them badly, but to show that it's not cool to beat up on the smaller children. So they normally learn that lesson fairly fast out of the sparring. So all of those combined is what we would do to assess their test. If they're weak on one thing, normally we'll just sort of condone that and say, you need to bring this up, and the other levels are very good, so we're happy to pass you today. Or if it's everything's bad, then it's not going to really be the student's fault. It's really going to come onto the teachers, because they should have pre-tested and they shouldn't be on the floor in the first place if we already know their character. So it's not very often that we'll fail somebody. Sometimes we'll have to check them and say you need to try harder in your next test, but most times it's a way of reward rather than a full-on test.
Good job. Your hands on the floor. Well earned today, okay? It's going to symbolize that you earned the belt on the floor. Put your head onto your belt. It takes the knowledge into the head before you put it around your waist. Congratulations again. Sit up. Put your belts on. Put your stripes on.